that great setup for this session. As you mentioned, reforging political and tech alliances in today's context is very important. We have a fantastic panel to discuss this today. Secretary General, Director of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs here in Estonia, Jonatan Vseviov, welcome. We have the Canadian Prime Minister's Special Envoy to Europe, Stéphane Dion, welcome, sir. Government Affairs and Public Policy Lead for Ukraine at Google, Anna Bulakh, a Talent Digital Summit regular as well. Welcome back, Anna. And Deputy President International at Airbus, Antonio Porras. But let's set the context, let's set the scene here now and have some opening remarks both from Estonia and Canada. Jonatan Vseviov.
Well, thank you, and it's good to see you all here. First time for me in the new Estonian National Library, I guess, in English. Still a work in progress, as I can see, but wonderful to see so many people here listening to a panel which I hope will be very interesting due to the wonderful colleagues I have on my left. I'll open with a few very generic comments just to kickstart the discussion. As a diplomat, I usually deal with partners, allies, and adversaries in the physical domain. And for years, we've been seeing the world develop in a way that arises not just particular regional or national challenges, but systemic challenges. When I was ambassador to the United States, part of my job was to explain to my American friends that we in Europe, we share the same fundamental ideas, principles, norms, and legal systems with our American allies. I talked about the American Revolution, how it was based on ideas that came from Europe, how there are fundamental things that unite us on the two shores of the Atlantic. I trust the same is true for Canada. My point always was that while we present a certain worldview, there are other systems, competing ideas in the world that are gaining momentum. Competing ideas as to how international relations ought to be organized, competing ideas as to how the relations between the individual and the state should be organized. And this creates systemic tension, geopolitical tension into the physical world. Now, the way we approach this problem is by forging alliances, dealing with the adversaries, hopefully sooner before they get out of hand, before they develop into a war. The fundamental difference between what happens in the physical domain and the digital domain is that in the digital domain, we governments can't do it ourselves. Many of the principles are the same. The international law, the norms, the principles that underpin our societies, they need to apply both in the physical and in the digital domains. That has been Estonia's lesson learned, Estonian idea that we're trying to promote around the world. The fundamental difference is that the governments not only cannot do it on themselves in the digital domain, they aren't even perhaps the primary actors in the digital domain. We need buy-in from our private sector. We need buy-in from the civil society. That was, again, Estonia's lesson back in 2007. When we came under fairly unsophisticated cyber attacks, we were successful not only because of what our government did, what we did together with other allied governments, but primarily because of how we pulled our private sector, civil society together and how we dealt with it as a whole society. Now, final point to kickstart the discussion. The world is becoming more digital. The physical domain does not lose its importance, but the world is becoming more digital. If I'm correct, if my underlying hypothesis is correct, then I trust that in international relations in general, we governments need to find additional ways of bringing private sector and civil society players on board with us, not only in responding to the challenges, but also in crafting policies, strategies, defining the playing field. Eventually, this challenge needs to be turned into our strength. I believe that is something that we certainly in the government need to focus on, because it is not going to come naturally.
Jonatan Vseviov, thank you so much. Mr. Dion, I understand this is your first time in Tallinn. Welcome to you for opening remarks, please.
Thank you, Madam Davis. I prepared my remarks very carefully, but I'm giving my word it will not be longer than 5 minutes, okay? Maybe 6, no more. Yes, thank you so much, Madam Davis, Secretary General Jonatan Vseviov, Google Public Policy Lead Anna Bulakh, and International Airbus Deputy President Antonio Porras, summit participants. Being here in Estonia, yes, for the first time, an admirable high-tech country, for the 2025 Tallinn Summit, which brings together some of the leading experts and players in the digital revolution. I cannot express enough my gratitude for this golden opportunity to emphasize to you how important it is to further strengthen the already excellent strategic policy and tech alliance between Europe and Canada, and particularly between the EU27 and Canada. Yes, it's excellent, but we cannot be satisfied with the status quo. The serious challenges we all face, geostrategic, technological, eco-climatic, require Europe and Canada to do more together, much more. That is why Canada has concluded robust agreements and partnerships with European countries in recent years and months in the strategic areas we are discussing today, particularly artificial intelligence, quantum technology, cybersecurity, with Estonia especially, cybersecurity, and security and defense. I am here to tell you that these agreements and partnerships between European countries and Canada must not remain on paper. They must be fully implemented. Sometimes we sign agreements and then we switch to something else. We need to fully implement them. And you can count on the government I represent and Prime Minister Carney to ensure that this happens. Canada wants to be closer to Europe more than ever. I want to point out especially the EU strategic partnership signed with Canada in June, the most comprehensive strategic partnership the EU has ever concluded with a non-EU country. Although, yes, it is true that it's with the most European of non-European countries, Canada. EU-Canada new partnership will facilitate digital trade agreement that would complement our Canada-EU trade agreement, CETA. And to further consolidate this commitment, an EU-Canada security and defense partnership agreement was concluded because we need to rearm, as you know, aiming to frame cooperation in all areas related to European security, cybersecurity, support for international operations. The agreement also opened the door for Canada to be a strategic participant in the SAFE program, the Security Action for Europe. So now we have a new roadmap. It is up to us to move it on. In Canada, let me just explain what is Canada. Canada is for Europeans, yes, a friend, an unwavering ally, with our commitment to deterrence and security visible on NATO's eastern flank, our support for Ukraine, a stable democracy with solid values, a trading nation that respects treaties and international rules. But Canada is also for you a semi-continent with soil rich in mineral resources that you will need for your energy, digital, rearmament transitions. And above all, Canada is a high-tech partner for you, which has been at the forefront of all technological revolutions and intends to remain so with the one in artificial intelligence. A pioneer in the field of artificial intelligence, Canada continues to be one of the leading developers of the technology with world-class research institute, MILA in Montreal, Vector in Toronto, AMI in Edmonton, and global innovation clusters as well as research universities that are among the largest producers in volume of AI and quantum talent in the world. We have a minister specifically dedicated to artificial intelligence and digital innovation, the Honorable Evan Solomon, and we have placed this issue at the center of Canada's G7 presidency this year. Canadian companies have developed high-potential solutions in the field of artificial intelligence, including applied to defense, including simulation and training solutions for the armed forces. We all know what we want: responsible development and use of artificial intelligence, trustworthy AI systems reflecting our shared values of human rights, democracy, and the rule of law. A technological revolution that will contribute to growth and prosperity instead of disrupt growth and prosperity. The acceleration will be exponential. In 5 years, entire sectors of the economy will be transformed. Jobs that have existed for decades may be replaced by AI systems. It will be, speaking of jobs, our job, as we responsibly integrate AI into our economies, to ensure that it will also work the other way around. And jobs that don't exist today will be created to adapt our economies to an AI-enabled future. So let us work together toward this goal. And for now, let us listen to what this distinguished panel has to say about this crucial issue. No pressure, fellow panelists. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you to both Jonatan Vseviov and Stéphane Dion for setting for us what is the context, but also the commitment that we're talking about here. I want to come now across to Anna and to Antonio and see this also, the context and the commitment from your perspectives. Anna, how can Europe and transatlantic partners lead the way in creating advanced transatlantic technological partnerships and also help increase economic competition, which is one of the drivers we need to establish this?
I would probably drive from a strategic side that was well covered, because competitiveness and openness to innovation is the core drivers that we share as a value in transatlantic partnership. And I think it's well described in Draghi report. It's well described and integrated how in policy side across the European Union right now is discussed. And it's also reflected how Ukraine looks at integrating all innovation and across the sectors. So how you look at innovation and absorbing new technologies from private sector and absorbing those new technologies in the government sector. And aside of the crisis and the war that Ukraine is, I think putting that even aside to look at that acceleration and absorbing of new technologies, it's where we are becoming a core partner. And I think what the main thing is about becoming a partner in innovation, and especially from digitalization in the past, from digitalization to artificial intelligence, is a courage. It's easy sometimes to look at innovation and digital transformation in a bubble, because innovation happens quite often in a private sector, but to bring in and shift it into the public sector and into the government technology sector, it takes courage. Mm-hmm. And it takes even bigger courage to use a smaller amount of resources available, of budgets, of finances, of capacities, to innovate and to pilot those projects on a government level. So I would be happy to go into in details how we're doing it in Ukraine, maybe in a second row of questions. But in the first day of this conference yesterday, all our government partners from Ministry of Digital, Ministry of Economy, and even Ministry of Defense of Ukraine have been already saying this new word of agentic AI, agentic state. What does it mean? It's how to facilitate that access to public services through AI agents. And that's where we became one of the core partners, and how we look into how make it safely, how to build that transparency, how to adjust also to a local vision, and how to adjust it to the transatlantic and European vision, and align it into the policies, how we build it together. And accelerate it, and to show that a local case with Ukraine, as in DAEI that is built now on Gemini, or e-permit with Ministry of Economy that is built on Gemma, on isolated environment, in sovereign environment, and how to bring that case locally and globally in European and even transatlantic case of agentic state.
Thank you, Anna. What I'm hearing here is actually we've got the sort of the context, we've got the commitment. Anna, you mentioned courage.
Yes.
Okay, but there needs to be some creativity in there as well. Antonio, what new agile models for public-private collaboration are required, do you believe, for governments and companies such as Airbus to actually be able to work together to counter some of the hybrid threats we have, but also to create and give us that edge in innovation?
Very good question, Kristen. Thank you very much. In the current context, with the threats we are facing in the cyber domain, cybersecurity is at the heart of our operations at Airbus, not only in the products, but also in our industrial critical infrastructure. And as you said, in this context of rapid innovation, we need to look for models where we can team up with the public sector, where we can team up with startups, scale-ups, and where we can bring our industrial muscle to create prototypes that then can be escalated and applied on a bigger scale. So here we are working with this model on the EDF with the European Defence Funds project, and it's working really well in this sector. And also, we need to work, and it has been discussed all along the conferences and the roundtable here at the summit, with the human factor. We need to work to attract talent. And also, one interesting model we are developing and we are implementing are the so-called, or what we call the innovation digital hubs that we are establishing all over the world in different regions, different countries. And I'm going to mention one example that we have established in Germany in collaboration with CISPA Helmholtz Information Security Center. We have established this hub in Saarland, and this hub is focused on cybersecurity and artificial intelligence. So this kind of model where we are ensuring that we are nurturing each other of the stakeholders of this ecosystem are the model to be followed. So, and this is a good basis to keep on working on there.
It's a good basis, definitely. Thank you for that. And I want to kind of riff on that and open it up and go one further, because this is what you're doing. But to maintain a strategic edge, we need many different technological and industrial capacities. And that's for Europe, it's for the coalition of the willing, it's for NATO, across the board here. So what do you believe are the things that we should be prioritizing and developing from both the technological standpoint, but also from the industrial standpoint?
It's for me?
Go ahead, go Stéphane first, yes.
Well, I think we need to strengthen our ability to cooperate together between democracies. Because it's so big, it represents so many different expertise. No country alone is able to do it. But I'm very impressed by what some very small nations are able to do. Estonia is one of the leaders of the export of digital governance services in the world, and they are 1 million and so. So it's possible to punch over your weight, and we have no choice, because otherwise the US will be alone in the game. I have here the numbers of Stanford University for global private AI investment in 2024, because we don't have the stats for 2025 yet. And the US is 109 billion of investment. The next is China with 9 billion, but they are catching up. And the others, like Canada, UK, France, we are between 4 and 3 billion of investment. So we need to make the optimal use of the resource we have in order to be effective, and it's why today I made a strong pitch for the cooperation between Europe and Canada in all these files. And we have leading Canadian companies here in this, at this summit. I know that we have, I think we have BlackBerry. I don't know if BlackBerry people are here. We have BlackBerry was a champion of secure communications. We have also, we have other companies like CGI, who's providing consulting services of very high level. And so we have a lot of good companies. Free Balance in financial system. I'm doing my job as ambassador. So you see, we have a lot to offer. We need also to receive a lot from you.
Okay. Jonathan, we've already heard that Estonia is punching above its weight here. Do you maybe have one or two examples of what Estonia has shown that other nations and the Coalition of the Willing can do to help it punch it a little bit harder, but also what you think we should be doing more of?
So the punching above our weight thing is always tricky because the weight, our weight class, we're a country of 1.3 million. So, so to be able to punch above our weight isn't really that big a deal. We always win on a per capita basis. But the trick here is not to just punch above our weight. Our aim is obviously much higher. Our aim is much higher, and I think we've been succeeding here and there in weight categories which are not just above our weight, but that are significant in real figures as well. So I first of all want to agree with much of what the ambassador just said on the importance of democracies working together. I think this is obviously key. We've been pushing for this. What I said earlier on the importance of developing norms and principles in the legal framework, this is critically important. The strength that democracies bring to the game isn't related to our government's ability to focus resources. We have no such capability. Our strength lies in the private sector. The private sector is private. It does not do what the government tells them to do. This is the fundamental difference from other systems out there. I'm not going to name names, but I think you know who I'm referring to. So how can we compete? How can we compete? Well, the government needs to provide that framework, and it needs to build trusted connectivity. A few years ago, Tallinn Digital Summit talked about trusted connectivity, how the government can ensure that the players in the field would know which connectivity mode is trusted and which one is not to be trusted. I mean, we need to be developing these norms that are not unique case by case for every particular company, but that are a framework, just like we do in the physical domain. I think much of what Estonia has learned has to do with bringing the private sector on board. I brought the example earlier, the 2007 cyber attacks. It told us that the bulk of the national strength that we have in the digital domain lives in the private sector, in our banks, in our telecommunication companies. These are competitors. They compete with each other. It's not a given that the different banks operating in Estonia or in any country are going to share critical, sensitive data on the cyber attacks that they just experienced. So the government here has to be the one building that trust between private companies. We have our small size working as an advantage in many cases. So we have individuals who actually know each other. We can bring them together under our National Guard type of a CinqC, Defense League organization, and have them conduct exercises every weekend, building those relationships so that when a bank comes under attack tomorrow, the individuals in charge of the bank's security already know their competitors on a personal basis. Small steps like this. But at the macro level, what we need to, I think, do is just what the ambassador suggested. We need to find ways for the democracies of the world to cooperate. Canada is a NATO ally, the United States obviously as well, but there are non-NATO critical partners that need to be brought on board. Australia, Japan, South Korea, I could go on down the list. The institutions that we have built today reflect the realities and the necessities of the physical world, where geography continues to be king. Where you sit depends on, or where you stand depends on where you sit, rather. In the digital world, that's not relevant. So the fact that South Korea, for instance, is far from Europe does not mean that they're not right immediately next to us when it comes to cybersecurity and digital development. So how can we bring them on board? How can we enlarge the organizations that we have without necessarily enlarging them in the physical domain? I think that is the challenge. And again, Estonia's example, or Estonia's experience, is that although we may be talking about complex issues, eventually relations are built between human beings.
Yes.
A man or a woman who knows another man or another woman. That relationship needs to be fostered, it needs to be built, and then it needs to live in an institution of some sorts with norms and regulations provided by the democratically elected governments. So it's oftentimes paradoxically simpler than is assumed, simply because of the technicality of the topic. It's oftentimes about building those relationships.
Those relationships, definitely. And in fact, that's that and the diplomacy part of it that I want us to get to just shortly. So we're going to hold that thought. I want to riff on some of the examples that you gave there, especially when it comes to sort of across the borders, and come to some examples from Ukraine. Anna, I want to hear from you some of the critical lessons from the work that you've been doing over the last 18 months with Google and in Ukraine about rapidly deploying some of the technology that is being used to help government services. So could you tell us a little bit there what you've been up to?
Yeah, because like even responding to these questions, how the private and competitive issue in times of crisis came as a one front, especially in Ukraine, when in 2022 all partners helped Ukrainian government to with data transfer to public cloud abroad, and it's still one of the core partnerships with the Ukrainian government, and here in the audience, one of the our partners in security and defense sector, and this is a testament where a capacity that belongs to private sector is so essential, when this public-private partnership is so essential. And of course, this is a rule-based, and the policies are so essential. And when this continuous discussions of how those policies around the cloud should be built in future, how it will be built after the martial law, we're in a full discussion around that. So it's fully transparent and sometimes sensitive and back and forth, and we admit that. And the future of AI is actually another really important topic. It's not just about the software that we are providing, but it's also about the infrastructure. And Ukraine is already on a path of looking how to build more of that infrastructure, how to look into that data centers and in that direction. But that's another sort of a topic I hope probably next year we'll put here for a discussion. But back to the question on the lessons learned, I would say the core example here is that policy iterates sometimes not as fast as iteration of what we see in Ukraine, and Estonia is amazing example of cyber resilience and comprehensive approach to security and defense, of partnership and integrating how this dispersed and decentralized response to cyber threats has been tested and integrated into the national security strategy that Ukraine has taken as an example and integrated it in its own national security. But getting to Ukraine's example right now on digitalization and on AI leap and on agentic AI leap, it's a bit even different story. It's when ministries, for example, Ministry of Digital Transformation or Ministry of Economy and other ministries, they are acting right now at some point as startups with a state vision, that they have to serve to the citizens really fast the most transparent and efficient services in the frameworks of policies and transparency, but as efficient as they can. With limited resources and capacity, that requires a tight partnership with the private sector, and it requires fast iteration and also integration into the European Union. So you see, there's lots of angles, and that's why this courage and limited capacity and partnership are so essential. So from lessons learned, that partnership not just on tools but on upskilling, because it didn't happen just like we came together, okay, here is a POC on some project. As Google, we are the biggest contributor to digital and AI upskilling in the country. 4 years since 2019, and those upskilling initiatives came across in government sector, but also SMBs and private sector, teachers, schools, and all sectors, providing them learning skills on digital tools. And then it went on the level of AI tools, of how to use them, how to operationalize your services, how to integrate that, and then it went into AI sector. This is how you boost your economy. And of course, like then transitioning into showing those tools to public sector. Education, and today in opening speech by a commissioner, it actually was highlighted. Yep. This is really core where we have to start. Education on upskilling, then building that trust in a tool, understanding how you actually can use AI, what is AI agent, and then integrating that.
Mm-hmm. Thank you so much. So just to riff on this sense, so we need the trust here. We need the diplomacy. We need the policies. We need the speed, I also heard from Anna. But Antonia, how are then dual-use technologies, something that at Airbus you're working on? How is this reshaping the intersection of foreign policy and national security? And sort of what new diplomatic challenges does this present? So I'm going to come to you and then maybe across to Stéphane and Jonatan for this.
Sure, Kristen. So when it comes to the dual-use environment, we see that more and more we are having the case of the civil spinning, where the civil sector are developing solutions that are embraced by the military. So this is the current context, and we need to adapt to it. For Airbus, we have very good examples of this. First one that came to my mind is the air-to-air refueling aircraft, which is called the MRTT, is based on a civil airplane that we modified to convert it into a military air-to-air refueling aircraft. And it's performing both kind of missions. Okay. Also, we have example of the A400M that is a military transport aircraft that we developed as a military aircraft. But there are more and more operations regarding disaster relief, firefighting, that are also having the dual-use angle. And then we have products that are directly dual-use by nature, like the satellite constellation that we call Pleiad Neo, where we are producing high-resolution imagery that are serving both the civil sector for urban planning, agriculture, you name it, and also the military sector, providing with geospace intelligence, maritime surveillance. So we see that more and more we are having this environment, and of course, we need policies and we need the public sector promoting and supporting the innovation associated to this dual use, but also we need to bear in mind the security challenges that this is supposing. And with this, I pass to the diplomatic side of the answer to my fellow colleague in the panel.
Jonatan and Stéphane.
Okay, in a few minutes about dual use. I think it will be fundamental because look our history. Jeeps came from the military, and it has been switched to civil use. Radar, internet, GPS, and before that, super glue. And frozen juice concentrate. All of this came from the military. We don't know that. So it will be the same now. It will be the same, that we need to make sure that dual use will be used in an optimal way, especially because we are not in a world of angels. We should not forget that we speak also about our own protection against disinformation, critical infrastructure attack, and the need to have an effective economic coercion against that, and for that we need to do it together. If Canada and Estonia do it alone, there is no use, it will be effective. So yes, for all these technologies, AI, biotech, quantum technologies, space, security implications of climate change, all of this will need to have a spray double use ability.
Thank you, Jonatan.
Well, just to add to this, dual use is a key word that pops up oftentimes when we discuss, for instance, sanctions, when we discuss ways to affect what Russia is doing. We worry about dual use technology transfer. And eventually, when thinking about these issues, it is still a matter of how a human being interacts with another human being, where technology perhaps speeds up the interaction, but doesn't fundamentally alter it. So the goal is not related to the technology per se. The goal is related to affecting how another human being how his or her cost-benefit analysis runs. So our goal is to convince Putin to end the war. And in order for that to happen, we're doing things with regard to technology transfer, with regard to raising the cost of aggression in general. AI might change that. So I haven't personally, and I don't think our government has, fully thought through how AI changes all of this. This might be the game changer. This is where it might no longer be only about human-to-human interaction, but where human-to-machine interaction becomes a new domain, if you will. Having said that, I haven't thought it through yet, and having said that neither has the government, I trust that some of the, or if not all of the principles that I articulated earlier will have to apply here. For the role of the government being, setting the norms, setting the boundaries, creating a legal framework, ensuring that there is trust between players on the field. But it is a challenge, an intellectual one, as well as a practical, legal, and political one.
Thank you very much. So I think we've had some amazing insights, but also examples about how we can be reforging policy between states, technology, collectively also. I'm hearing trust, I'm hearing about the commitment, examples from both of you, but also the need for courage, speed, and commitment, bravery, and creativity as well. Thank you very much to all of my panelists. Thank you very much to you all. Thank you. Thank you, Anna.
Thank you.